Hey everyone, before we get into today's review, I just want to make you all aware that there are massive amounts of spoilers going into this review of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. If you have not played the game or seen any footage, I would highly advise turning it back now while you still can. But for those of you who have already played the game or don't mind spoilers, enjoy the video. I also want to give a massive shout out to Square Enix for sending me a review copy of the game. Thank you guys so much. It's truly appreciated. And I also want to give another big shout out to Vic Chow for joining me in today's review discussing his character, Sung. A garden houses plants, birds, snakes, and 23 tiny wishes. The garden of this game creates an immersive world filled with Cloud's witty sarcasm, Tifa's mental prowess, Aerith's guidance, and Barrett's strength that holds everyone together. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is a story that encompasses the entirety of what Final Fantasy VII is and what brings it to life in the remake of Rebirth. This entire story of Final Fantasy VII is massive and takes on so many forms, ideas, and concepts. Sephiroth's questioning his existence is what causes a meltdown of cataclysmic proportions to occur, while there's Cloud who is fighting Sephiroth mentally at every turn, along with the possibility of full-body degradation. Playing this game made me fall in love with the first part of 7 more than I ever thought possible. At first, I didn't like the first part of 7, even though it had its moments. At times, it felt lackluster and somewhat confusing, but now after playing the first part of 7, Crisis Core, and now Rebirth, it all makes sense. This is one of the most intricately woven stories I've seen in a game that maintains momentum and grows with every chapter played. What's going on, you guys? It's your Huggable Hipster here, and welcome back to the reviews. Today, we're going to be diving into my review of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Throughout my time playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the storyline got a little hard to follow, needless to say. Whether it's because of how the storyline went back and forth between Cloud and Zack's timeline, or how there's no concrete explanation for new players on how Zack is even alive at this point in the timeline. Side note, I should say, I don't expect there to be an explanation, but maybe cleaner storytelling. While it made sense in the end, the backing and forthing of the timeline was kind of weird, and when it first happened, I thought it was ill-placed. Towards the end of the game, it clicked that Zack was there because there are multiple timelines, not just one. There's the timeline of the live stream, there's a timeline that we have of the planet. There's so much going on within this game timeline-wise. And like how each timeline is represented in the story of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, we see also that there are other types of characters who survive each timeline, like how Aerith survives in one and Zack survives in another. It makes me also question about characters like Sung. Is he dead in one timeline and alive in another? I find Sung's character to be one of the most interesting because it is one of the most ambiguous characters, to say the least, because he's kind to Aerith in one instance, but he's also not a good guy in other instances to other characters. I think Sung's character is best left described by his voice actor, Vic Chow. What does Sung as a character mean to you? When you were voicing him, did you have a specific way that you wanted to voice him, a specific motivation that guided you with this character?
I'm actually really glad you asked about that because I actually had a lot of trouble with Sung early on. And I should back it up and just tell you that, like, I didn't know that I was working on Final Fantasy until like 5 minutes before they let me into the booth. So I auditioned for it. They had a code name and I didn't know what it was. And I'm just like, okay, cool. I booked something, and they're like, okay, can you show up at 8:00 at night at this studio? And it's like, yeah, sure. That's unusual that we're doing it at 8:00 at night, but sure, whatever. It's all good. And then, as I'm getting ready to go into the booth, they're like, oh, so this is Final Fantasy. And I'm like, whoa. So the funny thing is that I wasn't really told, about my character beforehand, before my first session. And so all of a sudden I have these lines and I realized that I was having trouble. Oh yeah, we were doing it at 8 p.m. because people in Japan were also listening in on stuff like that and making sure that things were acceptable from the Japan standpoint. And I remember with Sung, I was having trouble because I couldn't figure out if he was a good guy or if he was a bad guy, and it's like, if it's a bad guy, then I might do some really, I might use my like growly, angry voice and stuff. And if he's a good guy, I'll try to play him with a kinder voice and stuff. But the lines were just, the lines were, I was having trouble figuring it out. And finally I was just like, hey, help me out here. Is my character a good guy or a bad guy? Or is he ambiguous? And they're like, he's ambiguous. I'm like, okay, all right. So this is making a lot more sense. And that's when, we talked about it more, and I realized, like, I don't think he's intending to be bad. He just has objectives that he needs to accomplish. This is business for him, whether he's I don't want to say any spoilers or anything like that. But like whatever he's doing, I don't think he's doing it from any sort of standpoint of, ah ha ha, I'm gonna be evil, look at me doing these terrible things and stuff like that. Instead, he just has goals, he has business that he needs to get done, and by whatever means necessary, he will get that done. And so once I was able to work that out and understand that he was ambiguous, then Song's character made a lot more sense to me. And yeah, it's been wonderful. Um, it's been wonderful getting to voice Song, and I love the relationships that he has with Aerith, with Elena, and Reno and Rude. It's wonderful just seeing him interact. And I don't actually get to voice with the other actors during the session. So I voice it on my own, they voice it on their own, and it's just so wonderful seeing the cutscenes and seeing it all flow together, and seeing how the director, most of the time this was Kirk Thornton, so how he just blended everything seamlessly, so it does seem like we're talking to each other in the same room.
The story in this game has multiple answers to it because more than one thing can be right at the same time. I didn't fully realize this concept until Rebirth. With Aerith's death and Cloud losing himself in Sephiroth's spell out of pure admiration for him, this is one of those arcs as well in the timeline that adds another layer of complexity and sometimes confusion. Everything flows together, and even when in the moment it won't make sense, trust me, it will when you least expect it to. So let's dive into the mechanics, because they are really amazing when they need to be. Rebirth is a mixture of beautifully done graphics, a card game, combat design, and music design. When it comes to the way certain mechanics flow, it's another story entirely, with them being too slow at points during an action that is taking place or needs to take place. For example, when climbing walls, it will take Cloud a full second and a half to climb from each yellow ledge. Even when fighting certain enemies and or bosses, the time it takes for Cloud to get up, or even dodge for that matter, is either slow or non-existent. Take the dodging mechanic for example. It might as well not be there, because from my experience playing, I could barely land a dodge, especially in some of the later game bosses with Rude. It was almost impossible to dodge accurately. On top of the things I mentioned, the music at times felt to be too loud over what the characters were saying during cutscenes. It will take me out of the immersion because I'm trying to hear at points what is being said. I truly enjoy the combat and how smooth a lot of things ran in this game. Exploration was a really huge reason why this game works as well as it does. I got to see the openness I loved about Final Fantasy mixed with the linear aspect that makes games enjoyable for me. Open world games that let me explore without pushing me towards a linear objective become a little too overwhelming for me and take me longer to get through as a result. Now, that being said, I know some people like the reverse and prefer a more open world experience over the linear. So let's dive into the psychology of Rebirth, because the story of Rebirth is deeply psychologically rooted in both how the story is constructed and how the cutscenes are orchestrated around the story of 7, Crisis Core, and now Rebirth. Cloud's journey around stopping Sephiroth isn't just about stopping Sephiroth and that's it. It's more about detaching himself emotionally from the person he thought Sephiroth was. The robed men kind of serve as a reminder that Sephiroth is a part of the universe and a part of Cloud as a person. That Sephiroth isn't going anywhere, he is really embedded into the makeup of what the game is and what Cloud is. This is why they are always looking for the next place that Sephiroth will be at the end of the game. It's not about actually finding him. It's about confronting what he has instilled in each character. Whether that's an awakening of sorts or something repressed, Sephiroth is more than a character. He is a state of mind. He is an awareness of sorts. Sephiroth can be everywhere at once, taunting each character, forcing them to face things, to bending reality, even during the final boss battle where we clearly see two realities emerging of both Zack and Cloud. Could it possibly mean that the split in how the multiverse works is because of Sephiroth splitting characters' mental states? Or maybe, and this one I know it's a possible stretch, but the life stream and its memories are colliding with the planet and what is quote-unquote alive. So am I dedicating an entire section of this review to Queen's Blood? Yes. Yes, I am. This game is the only card game I've ever enjoyed in a video game. I will die on that hill. I wish it would become its own game separate from Final Fantasy, because I can see this becoming something much to the likes of what Arena is for Magic the Gathering. There was a learning curve with this game for sure, but by the time I got the hang of it, I was so immensely happy each time I went in to face another Queen's Blood player. I love that this was incorporated into the main storyline as well, so players can get, in a way, forced to learn how to play it and how the game works. I hope this becomes a standalone game because it's truly a gem. Rebirth had so many unforgettable moments, some moments that I could do without, and philosophical points that made me question life. I loved my time with this game. It's truly something special that made me cry in a happy, cathartic way. Could I have done without Chapter 8 being all minigames? Yes. Yes, I could. I feel like this chapter, it could have been taken so many different ways because it could have been looked at as a calm before the storm or on a very surface level where it's just all minigames distracting from the main story. Personally, I think it's a mixture of both, a calm before the storm and something unneeded that could have been left for later for the player to discover and go about after the main story was completed. After Aerith's death, I just sat back in my chair, cried, and then I giggled when she woke up because she's not really dead, is she? She's a part of the life stream's memories, which is a happy way to think about death. You're not gone, just somewhere else, incorporated into the place that you came from. With 59 hours being my total playtime, my personal score for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is an 8.5 out of 10. But you guys, that was it for my review of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. If you guys like my face and what I do, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell down below. May you find your worth in the waking world, dear hunter. Stay casually nerdy, and I will see you all in the next video. Ubasa.